1955, thousands of Sophiatown residents were forcibly removed from the suburb. They were relocated to Meadowlands, Soweto, under the Group Areas Act of 1950. In remembrance of this, a 13-kilometer walk set off from the Trevor Huddleston Memorial Centre in Sophiatown and ends at the Soweto Heritage House. Newzroom Afrika's Katleho Sekhotho joins us now with more on those details. Good morning, Katleho. I mean, this commemorative event marks a dark time in this country's history.
Good morning, Chaba. Indeed, it does. It was on this day, as you rightly put it, that hundreds of people saw apartheid police knock on their doors and forcing them to move out of Sophiatown to Meadowlands to establish a new life. And this was because the apartheid government, under that 1950 Group Areas Act, had declared this area a white suburb. The area was renamed Triumph at the time, and only in 2006 was the area renamed back to Sophiatown to embody its original identity. So about 60,000 people were displaced, forced out of their homes, in some cases families torn apart, and it was a bitter and painful time for those living here, because if one recalls or if one reads the history about Sophiatown, it was this cultural melting pot of different diversity, different multiracial groups here living in one space. And it was actually one of the rare freehold areas in which black people could own land. And it was so many people, different cultures, different backgrounds living together. We have jazz musicians, writers, actors, musicians coming from this place and really being a hub in which they lived in harmony together, and the apartheid government dismantling that. But to get more on the walk that's about to get underway in the next few moments, I do have with me one of the organizers, Tshepo, to give us more details. Tshepo, take us through just the significance of today's walk.
Today we're commemorating 70 years since people were forcibly removed from a place where people lived in happiness together, regardless of their color, their ethnicities, to different places along South Africa. So we're going to engage on a walk so that we show people where people were being forcefully removed to according to their races, and more so when we arrive in Meadowlands again, how people were further divided in terms of their tribes once they're in Meadowlands. So for today, we're just saying it's 70 years. It is a milestone, and people need to know what had happened here in Sophiatown. So even the people in Meadowlands must know what is it that made Meadowlands be what it is today.
Now, Tshepo, if one looks at this area, as you note, it was a melting pot of different cultural diversities. Do you think young people understand the significance of today's event?
Partly, yes, they do. However, we need not to stop to talk about the importance of Sophiatown so that young people get to celebrate and know who gave birth to them as a people. Because of, like you were saying in your introduction, the giants that came from the streets of Sophiatown. We need to harness that so that young people know that this is what is expected from them, to be that type of people that can come together to even be able to create a lingua franca of their own, which was spoken here in Sophiatown, at Sophiatown, that was known. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, if one looks at what happened yesterday, we saw the launch of the Don Matera activation exhibition. Why tie that in with today's walk?
Because Don Matera was one of the people that was born here in Sophiatown. He was lots of things when he was a young person. He was also a gangster here in Sophiatown. He was a political activist, and he was so I don't know how to say it now. My English is running away, but he was close to Trevor Huddleston. Now, like we were saying, his 70th anniversary. Trevor Huddleston also was unique in the sense that 70 years ago, he was the first person to be given his Talandwe at the Freedom Charter adoption in Cape Town. So that 70th commemoration fits nicely with Bradon Matera, and not forgetting the book that you wrote, Memory is a Weapon, because we were talking about the force removers, how this memory can be used as a weapon for us to get to know who we are and use it as a weapon so that we fight on and not just sit back and say it had to happen.
Thank you so much for that, Tsepo.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, Chaba, you heard it there from Tsepo, one of the organizers of today's walk. It is a 13-kilometer walk from here to Meadowlands, and I understand from the organizers that it will stop at the Nuclear Cemetery. So it's more of a symbolic walk. From there, there'll be transport, because there'll also be old people involved in the walk. There'll be transport, then taking people to what is called the Modise House, which would have represented the holding area, the administration area, in which when people were forcefully removed here, they were taken to the Modise House in Soweto, and that's where the admin process of getting them settled into Meadowlands happened. And it will, I understand, end at a chief's house in Soweto as well, and that's where the entire walk will conclude. And just making sure that people understand that distance, that 13-kilometer walk, really representing the changing of lives in 1955 on this day.
All right. Thank you very much, Katleho Sekhotho, Newzroom Afrika reporter.